The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Every member of the council was there, representing different alien species from across the galaxy. The room was filled with whispers and uneasy glances. Something big was happening, and everyone could feel it. At the center of the room stood the council leader, a tall and imposing figure with bright, glowing eyes. The leader raised a hand to silence the room, and all the whispers stopped. "We have made a decision," the leader announced, their voice echoing throughout the hall. "The Galactic Council declares war on the humans." The announcement was met with stunned silence. The humans had been peaceful members of the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had worked hard to build alliances, to learn from other species, and to share their own knowledge. No one had expected this. The human ambassador, sitting at the edge of the council circle, stood up in shock. "Why?" the human ambassador asked, his voice shaking. "What have we done to deserve this? We have kept the peace for millennia." The leader looked down at the human ambassador with cold eyes. "The council has reason to believe that humanity has become a threat to the balance of the galaxy. We will not tolerate this any longer." "But what proof do you have?" the ambassador demanded. "You can't just declare war without a reason?" The leader ignored the question. "The decision has been made. Prepare your people, ambassador. War is coming." With that, the council meeting ended, and the members began to leave the room. The human ambassador stood there, stunned and helpless. The other council members avoided his gaze, not wanting to be associated with the decision. It was clear that not all of them agreed with the war, but none were brave enough to speak out against it. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People were in shock. The Galactic Council, their friends and allies for thousands of years, had declared war on them without any warning. The streets were filled with confusion and fear. Families huddled together, listening to the broadcasts with wide eyes and anxious hearts. Why would the council turn against them now? What had they done to deserve this? Earth's leaders quickly gathered in a secret underground base. They had never expected this day to come, but they knew they had to be ready. The president, an old but strong-willed woman, stood at the head of the table. She looked at the faces of her advisors, seeing the fear and confusion in their eyes. "We need to stay calm," she said firmly. "Panic will only make things worse. We need to figure out why this is happening and what we can do to protect ourselves." The defense minister, a tall man with a stern expression, spoke up. "We should start preparing our defenses immediately. If the council has declared war, it means they're planning to attack soon. But we can't win a war against the entire galaxy," the foreign minister argued. "The council's forces are much stronger than ours. We need to find a way to negotiate, to find out why they're doing this." The president nodded. "We will do both. We will strengthen our defenses, but we will also try to find out the truth. Something doesn't add up here, and we need answers." Meanwhile, on other planets across the galaxy, people were also shocked by the news. Many could not believe that the humans, who had always been peaceful and helpful, were suddenly being called a threat. Some species had worked closely with humans and knew them to be good and fair. They wondered if there was more to this declaration than what the council was saying. Rumors began to spread. Some said that the humans had discovered something that the council wanted to keep secret. Others believed that the council was afraid of human technology and the progress they had made over the centuries. But no one knew for sure, and the council was not giving any more information. Back on Earth, the people tried to stay strong. They prepared for the worst, but they also held on to hope. They knew that they were not alone in this galaxy. Somewhere out there, they had friends and allies who would stand by them. And as they prepared for what was to come, a sense of unity and determination began to grow. They would not go down without a fight. They would stand together no matter what the future held. Just a week after the shocking declaration of war, the Galactic Council made its move. In the darkness of space, far from Earth's bright cities and bustling streets, a small human space station orbited a distant moon. It was a peaceful station, used mainly for research and communication with other colonies. The people on board had no idea they were about to become the first victims of this unexpected war. Early in the morning, as the crew went about their regular duties, the alarm blared through the station's corridors. Red lights flashed, and a voice echoed through the halls. "Alert! Unidentified ships approaching! All personnel to battle stations!" The crew rushed to their posts, fear gripping their hearts. They looked out into the vastness of space and saw them, dozens of alien warships, moving silently and swiftly toward the station. These were not just any ships. They were the Council's elite fleet, armed with weapons far beyond anything the station had. Captain Ramirez, the station's commander, took a deep breath and addressed his crew. "We are under attack by the Galactic Council. Our orders are to hold our ground as long as possible. We must warn Earth and give them time to prepare. The crew worked frantically, sending a distress signal to Earth. They knew they stood no chance against such a powerful enemy, but they were determined to fight. They activated the station's shields and weapons, preparing to defend themselves. The alien ships fired without warning. Bright beams of energy cut through the station's shields like a knife through butter. Explosions rocked the station, and the crew struggled to keep their balance. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and the power flickered on and off. "Return fire!" Captain Ramirez shouted. The station's weapons fired back, but they were nothing compared to the Council's arsenal. The shots barely scratched the alien ship's armor. Within minutes, the station was overwhelmed. The Council's ships surrounded it, blasting away at the defenses until there was nothing left. The station's hull cracked and crumbled, and fires spread through the corridors. The crew fought bravely, but it was a hopeless battle. "Evacuate! All hands abandon ship!" Ramirez ordered. The crew rushed to the escape pods, but even as they did, the Council's ships targeted them. One by one, the escape pods were destroyed before they could even launch. Back on Earth, the distress signal was received, but it was too late. The message was short and full of static, but its meaning was clear. The station was under attack, and there was no way to help them. Earth's military leaders gathered in the war room, their faces grim. They listened to the last message from the station. The sounds of explosions and the captain's final words, "We won't make it. They're too strong. Warn the others. Prepare for war." The signal went dead, and the room fell silent. The reality of the situation hit them hard. The Council had made their move, and they had shown no mercy. This was not a war they could avoid. They had to fight, and they had to be ready for more attacks. General Parker, a tough and seasoned soldier, spoke up. "We need to strengthen our defenses immediately. If they can hit a station that far out, they'll be coming for our colonies and eventually Earth itself. We need to warn all our outposts and allies," said Admiral Lee, the head of Earth's space fleet. "They need to be ready for an attack at any moment. We can't let what happened to that station happen to any other human settlements." As the leaders planned their next steps, a group of scientists analyzed the attack. They discovered that the Council's ships were using new technology, far more advanced than what humans had seen before. It was clear that the Council had been preparing for this war in secret for a long time. This revelation was both frightening and motivating. Earth realized they were facing a well-prepared enemy, but they also knew they couldn't back down. They had to fight back with everything they had. Engineers and scientists began working around the clock to develop new weapons and defenses. Soldiers trained harder, knowing they would soon be called to protect their home. People all over Earth watched the news with a mix of fear and anger. The attack on the space station was broadcasted everywhere, showing the cold brutality of the Council. Families mourned the loss of the brave men and women who had fought to the end. But this attack also sparked a fire within the hearts of humanity. They were not going to be easy prey. They would fight back. In the days following the ambush, Earth's forces prepared for what was to come. They fortified their defenses, built up their fleets, and waited. The Council had struck the first blow, but humanity was ready to show them that they would not go down without a fight. As Earth prepared for war, a strange message arrived at the United Nations headquarters. It was encrypted with an old code, one used long before the peace treaty with the Galactic Council. Only a few people knew how to decode it, and when they did, they found a message from an unknown source. It read, "Seek the truth about the Council. Your survival depends on it." The message was sent to Earth's intelligence agency. They quickly got to work, digging through old records and secret files, searching for anything that might explain the Council's sudden hostility. Days passed with little progress, and frustration grew. It seemed like they were searching for a needle in a cosmic haystack. Then one night, an analyst named Sarah made a breakthrough. She found an old classified report buried deep within the archives. The report was from over 1,000 years ago, written by a human diplomat who had secretly investigated the Council's activities. It spoke of a hidden project, something the Council had been working on in secret, even while preaching peace and unity. Sarah took the report to her superior, Director Morgan, a sharp and experienced leader. Morgan read the report carefully, his eyes narrowing as he absorbed the details. According to the report, the Council had been experimenting with ancient, forbidden technology. They were searching for something called the Source, a powerful energy that could control or destroy entire worlds. "Why would they keep this a secret?" Sarah asked, frowning. "And why declare war on us now after all this time?" Morgan shook his head, deep in thought. "Maybe they found what they were looking for. Or maybe they think we found it first. They decided to dig deeper into the Council's activities. Using their most advanced surveillance equipment, they monitored Council communications, hoping to catch a clue. After days of listening and watching, they intercepted a coded message between high-ranking Council members. It spoke of a location, a hidden planet on the edge of the galaxy, where they had found something that could change everything. Morgan knew this was their chance to learn the truth. He assembled a small team of the best soldiers and scientists and sent them on a secret mission to this mysterious planet. It was a risky move, but they needed answers. They needed to know what the Council was hiding. The team traveled for days, moving through deep space without making a sound. They finally arrived at the coordinates and found a planet hidden behind a thick field of asteroids. Scans showed no signs of life, but there was a large structure on the surface, something built by the Council. They landed and approached the structure carefully. It was an ancient temple, covered in symbols that none of them could understand. Inside, they found a large chamber filled with strange machines and glowing crystals. In the center of the chamber was a massive door, sealed shut with complex locks and codes. One of the scientists, Dr. Patel, worked to unlock the door. As she did, the ground shook and a low hum filled the air. The door slowly opened, revealing a chamber filled with swirling energy. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was the source. The team recorded everything, sending the data back to Earth. But as they explored further, they triggered an alarm. The entire structure began to shake, and a hologram appeared in front of them. It was the leader of the Council. "You should not be here," the hologram said coldly. "This power is not for you. Leave now, or face the consequences." Before they could react, the temple started collapsing. The team ran back to their ship, barely escaping as the temple crumbled into dust. They flew back to their fleet, knowing they had discovered something dangerous. When they returned to Earth, they shared what they had found. The Council was searching for power beyond imagination, something that could control the galaxy. And they believed that humans could either threaten this power or had knowledge of it. Earth's leaders realized the truth. The war was not about peace or safety, it was about control. The Council feared that humanity might have access to something that could challenge their power. This was why they had declared war without warning. With this new knowledge, Earth's strategy changed. They could not just defend themselves, they needed to expose the Council's true intentions. They prepared a broadcast to the entire galaxy, revealing the Council's secret project and their quest for the source. The message went out to every corner of the galaxy, reaching allies, neutral species, and even those who served the Council. The truth was out, and now the galaxy watched closely. The Council's mask of peace had been shattered. Humanity was no longer fighting alone. They had allies, and they had the truth on their side. The galaxy was in shock. The broadcast revealing the Galactic Council's hidden agenda spread like wildfire. Many species who once saw the Council as protectors now viewed them with suspicion and fear. Some openly condemned the Council, while others quietly withdrew their support. Humanity's gamble had worked. They had turned the tide of public opinion. But the Council was not going to back down easily. They had to maintain their power and control, and that meant crushing Earth no matter the cost. Earth's leaders knew the Council would strike back hard. They received reports of a massive fleet gathering at the edge of the galaxy, preparing to launch a full-scale assault. Every available ship, soldier, and weapon was put on high alert. Earth's forces were ready to defend their home, but they also knew they were up against an enemy with centuries of experience in warfare. General Parker stood in the command center, staring at the holographic map of the solar system. Red dots marked the incoming enemy fleet, moving closer with every passing hour. "This is it," he said, his voice steady. "The Council wants to make an example out of us. We won't let them." Admiral Lee nodded in agreement. "We have the advantage here," she said. "They're entering our territory, and we know it better than they do. We'll use every trick we've got to make them regret this invasion." The fleet was divided into 3 groups. One group was stationed around Earth, the last line of defense. The second group was positioned near the outer planets, ready to intercept the enemy as they entered the solar system. The third, and most daring group, was set to launch a surprise attack from the asteroid belt, where they had hidden their ships among the rocks and debris. The hours ticked by slowly. Tension filled the air as everyone waited for the inevitable. Finally, the alert sounded. "Enemy fleet detected," came the voice over the intercom. "All units, prepare for battle." Out in the darkness of space, the Council's fleet appeared, their ships emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. They were a terrifying sight, massive warships bristling with weapons, moving with cold precision. They advanced toward the outer planets, unaware of the trap waiting for them. The first shots were fired as the Council's ships crossed the orbit of Neptune. Earth's outer defense fleet moved in, launching a barrage of missiles and energy beams. The Council responded immediately, their ships unleashing a devastating counterattack. Explosions lit up the void as ships on both sides were hit and destroyed. General Parker watched the battle unfold on the screens in front of him. "Hold the line," he ordered. "We need to keep them occupied until our second wave is ready." The outer defense fleet fought bravely, using every tactic they could to slow the enemy's advance. They maneuvered through the asteroid fields and used the planet's gravity to their advantage, striking quickly and then retreating before the Council could target them. But the Council's fleet was larger and more powerful. Slowly, they pushed forward, destroying any ship that stood in their way. "Now," Parker said quietly, his eyes fixed on the screen, "launch the second wave." From the asteroid belt, Earth's hidden fleet sprang into action. Dozens of ships burst from their hiding places, catching the Council's fleet off guard. They attacked from the flanks, focusing on the enemy's smaller support ships. The surprise worked, and the Council's formation broke apart as they tried to respond to the new threat. "Excellent," Admiral Lee said with a fierce smile. "Keep pressing them. Don't give them a chance to regroup." The battle raged on, with ships clashing in a deadly dance of fire and metal. The Council's fleet was powerful, but Earth's forces fought with everything they had. They were defending their home, their families, and their freedom. They knew that losing this battle meant the end of everything they held dear. Despite the element of surprise and their fierce resistance, the Council's fleet was relentless. They adapted quickly, coordinating their ships with deadly precision. One by one, Earth's ships began to fall. Explosions filled the screens as the enemy's weapons found their targets. "Reinforce the outer lines," Parker shouted. "We can't let them break through." In the midst of the chaos, a sudden calm fell over the command center. An eerie silence that only lasted a moment, but it felt like an eternity. Then, the enemy ships turned their fire toward the last line of defense, Earth's home fleet. This was it, the final stand. "All ships, focus fire on the lead enemy vessel," Admiral Lee ordered. "If we can take it down, we might force them to retreat." Earth's fleet converged, aiming their most powerful weapons at the Council's flagship. It was a desperate move, but it was their only hope. The ships fired in unison, beams of energy and missiles streaking through the darkness, all aimed at one target. The Council's flagship took the hits, its shields flickering and failing. For a moment, it looked like it would be destroyed, but then it retaliated with a blast of energy that tore through the front lines of Earth's fleet. Ships exploded, and the command center shook as the impact was felt even on the ground. But the people of Earth were not ready to give up. They fought with everything they had, refusing to let the Council take their home without a fight. They knew this battle was just the beginning, and they were prepared to face whatever came next. Earth's fleet was battered and bruised, but they weren't defeated. The battle had taken a heavy toll, and many brave souls had been lost. The Council's fleet loomed ahead, still powerful, but they had taken damage too. The entire solar system had become a battlefield, with debris and wreckage floating among the planets. General Parker stood in the command center, sweat on his brow, his eyes never leaving the screens. "We can't hold them off much longer," he said, his voice grim. "But we have to try. If we lose here, it's all over." Admiral Lee nodded, her face set with determination. "We'll make our final stand here, at Earth. If they want our home, they'll have to go through every last one of us." The Council's fleet began its final push, advancing toward Earth with cold precision. They moved in tight formation, their weapons glowing as they prepared to unleash their full power. The people of Earth watched in fear, but also in hope. They knew this was the moment that would decide their fate. "All ships, fall back to the final defense line," Parker ordered. "We need to protect the planet at all costs." The remaining Earth fleet pulled back, forming a protective ring around the planet. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something the Council didn't: the will to fight for their survival. They knew they were fighting not just for themselves, but for every human being on Earth. The Council's ships opened fire, sending a wave of energy beams and missiles toward Earth's defenses. The Council's ships opened fire, sending a wave of energy beams and missiles toward Earth's defenses. Explosions lit up the sky as the two forces clashed, each side refusing to give an inch. Earth's fleet returned fire, focusing on the lead enemy ships trying to break their formation. On the ground, the people of Earth watched the battle unfold. Cities had gone dark to conserve power for the planetary shields, and the night sky was filled with the lights of war. They knew that their fate was being decided above them, and they prayed for a miracle. In the command center, General Parker received a report from his chief engineer. "Sir, we have an experimental weapon ready," the engineer said. "It's a high-energy pulse cannon. We've never tested it in battle, but it might be our only chance to turn the tide." Parker's eyes widened. He had heard of the pulse cannon, a weapon designed to disable enemy ships without destroying them. It was risky, but they were out of options. "Do it," he said. "Prepare the cannon and target the center of their fleet." The engineers worked quickly, powering up the pulse cannon. It was hidden deep within Earth's defense grid, built as a last resort. Now, it was their only hope. "Pulse cannon ready," the engineer reported. "Target locked on the enemy fleet." Parker took a deep breath. Fire. A bright light shot from Earth's surface, heading straight for the Council's fleet. It moved so fast that the enemy ships had no time to react. The pulse hit them square in the center, spreading out like a shockwave. The Council's ships flickered, their lights dimming as the pulse disrupted their systems. "Direct hit!" the engineer shouted. "The enemy fleet is disabled!" Cheers erupted in the command center as Earth's fleet saw their chance. The Council's ships were still floating, but they were unable to move or fire. Admiral Lee gave the order to attack. Earth's ships moved in, firing at the disabled enemy vessels, taking down as many as they could. But the victory was not yet secure. The Council's flagship, though damaged, was still operational. It began to charge its main weapon, aiming directly at Earth. If it fired, it could destroy the planet in a single shot. Parker saw the threat and knew they had to act fast. "All remaining ships target the flagship," he ordered. "We have to take it down before it fires." Earth's fleet concentrated all their firepower on the flagship. Missiles and energy beams struck the ship's hull, but it was heavily armored. The flagship's weapon continued to charge, glowing brighter with each passing second. Then, in a final act of bravery, a single Earth ship broke formation and accelerated toward the flagship. It was the UNS Valiant, one of the few ships left with full power. The captain of the Valiant knew what had to be done. "Sir, they're on a collision course," Admiral Lee said, her voice breaking with emotion. "They're gonna ram the flagship." Parker watched in silence, knowing there was no other way. The Valiant sped up, heading straight for the enemy ship. In a flash of light, it collided with the flagship, the explosion tearing through both vessels. The flagship's weapon flickered and died as the ship was destroyed. Silence fell over the battlefield. The Council's fleet was in ruins, their flagship gone. Earth's fleet was victorious, but at a great cost. They had defended their home, but the price had been high. The people of Earth cheered as they saw the enemy ships fall. They had survived. They had stood against the greatest power in the galaxy and won. The Galactic Council had underestimated them, and now they had paid the price. General Parker looked at the screens, his eyes filled with pride and sadness. "We did it," he said quietly. "We won." Admiral Lee nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, but we will never forget those who gave everything for this victory." The battle was over, but the story of Earth's stand against the Galactic Council would be told for generations. Humanity had shown that they were not to be underestimated, that they would fight for their freedom no matter the odds. And as the galaxy watched, they knew that Earth would never be the same again.